Okay, welcome to your syllabus for your hero life. I am so glad that you're here. So, let's get into it. I want you to think of your mind like a grocery store. And the store is where all your inputs live, where what you've read, watched, practiced again and again, things you feared, things that you've repeated, everything you've ever taken in is stocked and shelved and waiting. And if you walk into this store with a little kid and say, get whatever you want, you're going to end up with a cart full of candy, toys, and things that will not make you a meal. But if you say, go down the aisle and grab the pasta sauce with the red lid, the kid can do that too. The kid is very smart. So, our mind works exactly the same way as that kid. It is able to respond exactly to what you ask of it. If you want to make a cake or a good spaghetti dinner, you don't wander the store arguing with every impulse of what you want on the shelves. You just you take a recipe, and from the recipe build a shopping list. And the shopping list tells you what to look for and what to ignore and how everything fits together. And that's what this syllabus is. It's not a system of rules or a productivity system, but rather just a recipe so that you can make the things that you want to make with your life and your mind right now. This is a syllabus for your hero's life. And I'm going to walk you through each section using my answers. But this isn't prescriptive. Ideally, print this out or pull the document up onto your screen so that you can write in and fill in the answers along with me. I'll just be going through my answers so that you kind of get the idea for the idea. Make sure that you're not trying to just optimize yourself. We do that too often. Right now we are just choosing the ingredients that we want to stock our mental shelves with. That is the goal of this. So, with the first section, what are we going to tell the mind to go get? For me, psychology, writing, and speaking well. Those are the things that I'm telling that little kid in my mind to go after when we enter the store. So, those are very broad things, and the kid is looking at me like, okay, how do I go get that? So, we need to make them very specific. So, in terms of what I want to learn, to make that specific, I want to focus on Jung and depth psychology. More on why that specifically later, but so I will put in my answer here. So Jung and depth psychology, and that is because I'm going to be a psychologist in the future and I'm a writer. So Jung is a fantastic place to start, and I understand him in a pop culture sense, but it's really time for me to understand it beyond therapy, pop culture speak. So the next thing I really want to learn is how to edit fiction, how to edit my novel. Because I've ghostwritten nonfiction before, I understand that process, but editing fiction is completely different, so I really want to learn how to do that well and tell the stories I want to tell. And the next is speaking well. So I really want to be able to do that too, because being a therapist, being able to pitch novels and hopefully one day movies, all takes speaking, all require speaking. So those are my narrowed categories. So whatever you've put in your broad fields for what you want to learn, break them down into a deeper, specific categories so that we can really know what we're working with in this syllabus. Now your why statement. The why statement is important because you're going to be returning to this many times throughout the process. Every time you don't want to read or don't want to do the things you said that you wanted to do, your why statement is fuel in the tank. So For me, let us just put this in here. This is my why statement. I'm learning these things because I want to alleviate suffering. Storytelling and mental health are two places where I know that I can do that. So, though that is my deep archetypical why. Try to make your why very, uh, very deep, beyond shallow. Oh well, I really want to start this business so I have money. Well, why this business? Why not a different business? What is the why that is going to fulfill you beyond just the material aspect of the goal, if that makes sense? So really spend a little bit of time with the why statement. So next, articulation and mental processing. So articulation of thought is how we train our awareness. It is how we train the little kid in the store and the adult in the store. So the communication between the kid and the adult is what articulation is within our working metaphor. So it is how we train our awareness. It is, and we can do this in multiple ways, but the two ways I'm going to focus on is on paper and speaking, on video or audio voice memos. So this isn't just a skill for people who want to speak publicly. It's one of the fastest ways to see where your mind goes and where you've been moving on autopilot. It's really important to learn what you reach for when you're in the store without even realizing it. So writing and speaking let you notice the same habits, the same fears, all of the habitual thoughts that you return to so often. So with that said, how basically the practice is you have a notebook or you have a camera and you just spill out your thought process on the page or on the camera. Really just like from wherever you are, let it all out and speak so that you can start to process and start to just we think that we know our mind because we're thinking within our mind often, but because we are thinking within our mind, we're quite blind to a lot of the things and behaviors of our mind. So this is going to help us learn the behavior and the patterns of our mind. So in the syllabus, all I want you to fill out is the method of which you're going to do this. So for me, journal and audio, what's it called? Voice memo. And not memes, memo. And how often can you realistically do this? I'm not asking you to spend 8 hours a day unless that's in your capability. For me, I know every single day, even if it's been a long, hard day, I can commit 15 minutes. Let's just do the number. I can do 15 minutes at the end of the day processing the day. This is going to help you better be able to communicate with that kid in the store and start to get the results you want. A lot of the practices that are in the syllabus seem very small and slightly trivial, but they all really build on one another to help you reach your goals, no matter what the goals are. So next, these are where your creative goals are, your primary projects. These aren't your hustle goals, these are training goals, where we are trying to remove the hustle culture language a bit from it. Even if you're trying to like make a new app, or you're trying to pass school courses, or get promoted, like there's a hustle in that field. But here we're just trying to make you a map, and we don't need a hustle in the map. So what are your primary projects? For me, I am editing my novel, and for me, I'm not including things like my college or my volunteer work or things like that, because those are all just kind of, at this stage, those things are just kind of like brushing teeth, kind of like they're standard. I do my school every day. I work, clock in to work and stuff. That's just kind of habitual. So these are just more so things that are not in your habitual life that you want to enhance. So if that is your career, if that is your entrepreneurship, totally put that in. If it is your school, put that in. For me, I'm not putting that in because it's just kind of at that point. So editing my novel, expanding my creative capacity, and those are the two primary creative projects for me. I have some other thing. Yeah, that's pretty much just my main creative projects. So now these were supposed to go down here. That's all that this is. So just put here whatever it is, the measurable things by which you are working on. So then this is a repeat of what that means. So next, on to the very, very fun part, media and reading. So the reason media is so important is because we will always become what we consume. And if you don't believe me, just go ahead and binge watch Law and Order SVU for a week, and then binge watch SpongeBob, and you will start to see the world differently in those 2 weeks. I promise you that. And as a writer, it's just really impossible to ignore. Like, the things I read, I inevitably start to emulate without even realizing it. They always find their way into my work. So instead of fighting the fact that we are just these huge sponges, we can use it. And we can use it to reach our goals and make it easier for our environment to reinforce our goals. So we want to choose the media that we put in, and that'll start to change all of the options on the shelves. Because a lot of the times we're sending that kid to get a specific ingredient that we just don't really have much of. So the kid is just constantly looking like, okay, well, I'm seeing a lot of high school embarrassment. I'm seeing a lot of Cheetos and Fritos, not really seeing the like magnum opus aisle. So we want to add more things to our shelves, and we want to choose media that reinforces what we're learning and supports what we're trying to make. And it's not to say that you need to be like picky and choosy, like, oh well, that's not good content or anything like that. Consume what you want to consume. But I think a good rule is, if you were to wake up one day and everybody found out that this piece of media was something that your name was attached to, you made it, would you be proud? That's a good way to decide if like you want that piece of media coming in and influencing what you create, because it's gonna influence everything you create. So that's a good little barometer to see like, oh well, do I actually want to be spending an hour on this? Anyway, I'll get to what I actually want to talk about of the media. So for me, to help me reach my goal of editing my novel and trying to make it something awesome, I have broken it down so that I read 3 books and listen to only 1 album and only 2 movies for a month period. The reason I chose these sort of 4-week blocks is because that just really works for me. It takes about a month to read 3 books with school and with everything else. So, and I really wanted these 3 kinds of books. I wanted a psychology, theory-based book. I wanted an atmosphere book. I'm writing about a jazz musician, so a lot of these are memoirs, because I really just want to get in the feel of that, and then the editing a craft book. So each of these, ideally, I need a preface. You don't have to choose 3 books. You don't have to even choose books. You can do any types of blocks. The goal here is just for you to choose specific media that reinforces your goals, that you return to, and you're able to have enough time to inundate yourself with those specific flavors of media. I'm just showing you mine for example. So let's get a visual on this. So this is this is my chunk one. So this was for February. So the start of February. So first, Man and His Symbols, Carl Jung, starting with the easy, simple, and then Miles, the autobiography of a jazz musician, and then self-editing for fiction writers. I chose these because they all align with my goals pretty well. This is where it gets more fun. Movies, for me, movies and the album. I chose Soul and Moonlight as my 2 movies that I get to watch in the month. And I've already watched Soul like 3 times because just love it. It's very fun. I chose these because they really fit the, let's see over here, the aesthetic I'm going for in my story. And then I wanted to just show another chunk to show you that not every chunk needs to be the same. I have for this next chunk, The Trouble with Being Born, a philosophy book. It's like complete polar opposite of who I am, to try to really get into the mind of my character, who's like a bit nihilistic. And then we have the classic. I'm rereading Giovanni's Room because that's like the pinnacle book that I'm trying to really like get into the mind of. And then we have the elements of eloquence, writing style, Mo Better Blues, jazz, fun, and In the Mood for Love, and then an album. So J. Cole, and this one was Kendrick Lamar. So basically, you just want to choose the timeline, how long you're going to inundate yourself with your chosen media, and what that media is going to be, and how that media ties back to your main goals. That's the goal for this section. So just fill in here books, films, shows, and like I said, if you're like making a movie, definitely load up on the films and movies more than the books, or however you want to do it. Like this is just the bones. So next, we got the mind itself. So here we have some patterns in the mind that we want to work with. So for me, the patterns I really want to work with is presence and the observer, which we will get much more into the observer in the spirit section, but for now, that's one of my really big goals. Patience, probably my biggest goal ever. I'm gonna say that about all of them, but I'm a guy who needs patience because I do not have it. So accessing flow and reducing interruption. I've gotten to the point of, I know flow exists because I've gotten into it when I was younger. I thought, oh, flow state doesn't actually even exist. No, it just takes like practice with your craft, and then you get into the flow state. So, but now I will get into the flow state and then get pulled out of it due to distraction. So I want to really work on the distraction aspect of that. And then the last thing is food as a distraction and emotional eating. Huge for me. So whatever mental patterns you really want to work through the syllabus, just put those in here. Everybody's are obviously going to be different. And then this is the same thing. So we're just going to take that out. And then this is where you put in our plan of action. So how am I going to address these 4 things? I am going to be doing one-pointed meditation. It is probably the hardest meditation I've ever tried. I love mantra meditation when we're chanting and stuff because it's just, there's so much energy in it. But then one-pointed meditation, I'm just like focusing on my breath, and it's like very hard. But I can commit to doing 5 minutes of it a day. 5 minutes a day. And that addresses presence in the observer, and it addresses the interruption of flow states. So then next, let's see. This is a good one. When waiting, because there's lots of waiting in life, rather than reaching for my phone, I'll play I Spy like I did when I was a kid and try to train myself to enjoy waiting in the micros so that in the macrocosm, when I'm like, oh, what do you mean I'm not like famous yet, or like able to like buy each of my family members a house yet? What do you mean? I can start to accept patience in the big scale. Um, Next, I will be tracking my personal flow states. Just to start to understand my rhythms, natural, and what influences it, so that I can understand what causes interruptions and see the patterns go over time. And then the last one, avoid working in places where food is present. So, no more writing at the kitchen table, no more writing in a cafe. Well, instead, I'm going to be writing at parks. I am going to be, right now, all I can think of is parks. So, I'm going to be writing in parks and having so much fun in a park. So, here, yeah, just make a point of action and just be realistic. Like, I'm not planning on going on a 7-week silence retreat because I want to work on my focus. I'm just going to do 5 minutes a day at one point in meditation and build on that over time. So just be very realistic. The number one thing that messes our goals up is we overdo it, overcorrect, and it makes it so hard to even want to try once we do fail because we went too far. Okay, so now that we have all of these things we hope to do with the mind, let's look at a few tricks to help us progress through. So simply identifying the inner ally. So reading. Identifying the inner ally. So if there was a part of me that was already on my side, what would it sound like? If there was a part of me, and it's likely the part of you that clicked on this video, that wants you to succeed, that believes you can succeed, what does that voice sound like? For me, it's the I knew you were capable of persevering. That's what my cheerleader is telling me every time that something gets hard, because it's like that just simple, like just and you're gonna be, by keeping this in your mind, you can start to turn the volume up on the inner ally. So when because they're constantly saying this stuff, like your inner ally is constantly talking, it's just that they're in a part of the store that we are not walking to. So when I'm struggling, my ally would say what? What would they say? Well, realistically, what would the ally say to you? Mine would say, I am here with you. Because every time I'm struggling, I always feel so inconceivably alone. And it's like, you're not alone. Like, everybody's failed, everybody's struggled, everybody's felt like a loser. Like, you're nowhere near in a unique experience, but it feels so wildly isolating. So that's what they would say to me. What would they say to you? And then when I do fail, an ally will remind me that failure is not going to take away the good I've already done. Because that's something my mind likes to do. Love to erase all of the positive after the negative. So yeah, just fill that out, and it's very, very helpful to just on your home screen make a folder called Inner Ally, and in that folder have some of these things in it. And you just go to your Inner Ally when you can't hear the Inner Ally. Go to the Inner Ally on your desktop. They'll be right there for you. So next, this gets very, very fun. So, the vow. And the vow isn't about an outcome. This is how you relate to yourself and your training. Um, let me. I didn't bring the vow with me. My vows that I do in the morning. Okay, I'm going to go grab them. Do not go anywhere. I will cut this so that you're not stuck waiting while I walk back. Don't go anywhere. Oh, good. I'm so glad you're still here. Okay, so, vows. So, let's see. Okay, so basically, you want the vow to be a declaration. It's equal parts promise, equal parts declaration. We are telling everybody, that this is what we're doing and this is what we are promising to become. So, these also should be archetypically based in a sense. And you don't have to be overly religious with them by any means. A vow brings a connotation of religion, obviously, but don't have to be. This is just purely a promise to yourself, your subconscious, and if you anything else that you want it to apply to. So, my vow summarized is I vow to see beyond the fear which clouds mind. And that applies to just pretty much everything I want to change in my life. Fear, if you're somebody who struggles with fear or anxiety, you know how much that stops you from doing things. So, that's why that. So then I also vow to swim in wonder, because life is too short not to be caught up in the wonder and beauty. I also vow to act without attachment to the fruits of my labor. This is very important because, for me, because we don't know if when we did our very, very best on the spelling test and we got a low grade, the attachment to that A grade is going to make the experience very not that attachment's going to make, if we get a B, it's going to feel miserable. But if we make the attachment to doing our best, boom, bro, that means the experience then becomes enjoyable, and no matter the outcome cannot override the experience. Does that make sense? Anyway, so that's why that's important to me. And then the last one is I vow, I don't have to write the I vow. Okay. To free those from the bondages I've known. I don't know why I made this a link. Well, just ignore that. So, the reason that's important to me is because I feel so lucky to even be alive, to get over my many addictions and get over all the things, and I just want to be able to help others do the same. So, through therapy, through writing, all that stuff. So, what can your vow be? What do you want to do? What do you feel called to do? And what do you know that you can do? Put that into the vow, and really don't be like, I vow to get a cabin in the woods. The vow needs to be away from the material aspects of things. We want to, if your goal really is to get the cabin in the woods, say, I vow to surround myself with comfort and peace and tranquility. Like whatever that cabin in the woods represents in the bigger scope. We'll make the vowel emotion and thought form based, if that makes sense. So then, right after you say that vowel, now we have the name based vowel, and this is very important for helping strengthen that part of you that is telling people, not people, that metaphor from earlier where you're telling the kid to get the pasta sauce, the you that's telling the kid, we're strengthening them right here. So, name-based vowel. Say your name. I am Alexander. So, just put your name, not Alexander. And then list 2 to 5 archetypes that you truly want to embody. So for me, mystic, writer, artist, and then your name again. So, and misspell your own name. It's very humbling. And then what you want to do is start this with because. So you say your normal vow, blah 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 blah, free the bondages I've known, because I am Alexander, mystic, writer, artist, Alexander, and repeat that. You're creating an identity within your name of archetypical strength, and again, this is like a very small, simple thing, but you'll really start to see doing this over time, it makes a huge difference. So next, affirmations. Super fun. If you're in self-help communities, you probably see all the affirmations on YouTube or online, and that's very awesome. They are very nice. But you are not going to get the same benefits from affirmations. If you make your own affirmations, you're going to get much better results. So I suggest that whether you get a microphone or your headphones and just talk into your phone and record it, the reason why making your own affirmations is so much stronger is because you know the exact words and phrasing that your mind uses, the phrasing that your mind understands, and you also know the exact music and things that will make it so that it bypasses your mind. You know yourself better than anybody. That said, here are the 3, this is like a 3-strand structure that I recommend you use for making your affirmations. So, you are. So let's just say awesome. So, you are awesome. And then I want you to do I am awesome. And then I want you to do your name. So Alexander is awesome. The reason why I want you to do this at a 3-strand structure is because it lets the mind hear the message as beyond just repetition. It allows the mind to hear it as an identification on 3 levels of the sense of self. Very helpful. So, now the container ritual. So, whatever your goals were, whether up here when we talked about your plans of action and your primary creative projects, both of those all fit into the container ritual. So, for example, I should have just already put this in, but my 5-minute one-pointed meditation. So, basically, a container ritual is something that you do every single time before you do something. Why is this important? Because it trains the mind to get into that state. So every single time before I sit down to do my 5-minute one-pointed meditation, I'm going to start with 108 ROMs, some chanting to ROM. It's something anyway. So all you need to do for each of these is before exercising, what do I do? I'm trying to think of what I usually do before exercising. I usually do a Hanuman Chalisa. So you basically just want to choose either an action, whether it's I chew this kind of gum, or I drink this specific lemonade, or I listen to this song, or I For example, with my writing, I always listen to Link by Tierra Whack before I start writing. Every single time. Done it for like almost 2 years now, because it helps me. It's a way for me to call in the muses. So basically, I want you to just, in this section, create a container ritual for all of your creative projects and all of your action method for the things you're trying to work on in your mind. This will help you build both momentum and get into those moments when you're doing those things faster. So then, next, another thing to help us is the win, then contract. Instead of, basically, these will just help us pre-decide the ways we are going to act, so that when we are emotionally triggered, we do not have to spend time thinking about what we need to do to fix it. So, for example, for me, I shouldn't have put lines. I wanted it to look professional and just kind of waste time. Okay, when I feel like a failure, then I do a chorizo. The reason I do a chorizo when I feel like a failure is because when I feel like a failure, it's like staring into a mirror too long. It's like a super intense inward focus. And by doing a chorizo, an act of devotion, I'm actively turning that outward. And it's very hard to judge yourself if you're doing an act of service. We'll talk a lot about that in the community section, because, yeah, if you're somebody who suffers from low self-esteem, acts of service are your very, very best friend. So when I do blank, then I blank. When I start to spiral, then I blank. These are all just kind of optional topic starters, whichever of these really work for you, and then just fill in this. And then I have a red folder on my desk where I have when I feel like a failure, then I do a chorizo. When I feel like binge eating, I go for a walk. Not because the walk is going to make me lose calories or anything, but because I just need to get out of the vicinity of the food, and then I'll be fine. Like, it's up in the mind. So basically, just in this section, just define yourself the win-then contracts. And I really recommend a red folder on your desk. You know, it's always visible in your line of sight. Very helpful. So the next thing that can kind of help is that it is important to know that this is a training arc. Your life is not a test. So it helps to name the things that show up, because it's not, there's not an invisible force against you. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, but if you have, I'm here to tell you that there isn't an invisible force actively going against you in your better life. The resistance is just a threshold guardian. The boredom is a desert phase, and the confusion is just the descent. When we are watching a character in a movie and they get lost in the woods, it's not a failure that lasts longer than their experience of getting back on track of the map. Does that make sense? Your feelings of feeling overwhelmed by all the things you want to make and all the things you want to do in life do not need to take up more space than to get you back on track. I hope that makes sense, because when we're watching somebody get lost in a movie, we don't feel overly stressed or scared, because we know that there's more movie left and we know that they get unlost. So remember that you are in a training arc, and know that if you fail, there is still more movie to go. So to help with that, to help work with failure, it is important to know your behaviors. So when I fail, I tend to stew. and shut down. What is my failure actually asking of me? It is asking me to, oftentimes, my failure happens due to oversight, bouncing from things to things and missing seemingly vital steps. So, oftentimes, my failure is asking me to slow down. What is your failure asking you? So, how can I respond to this failure? That in a way that helps preserve my dignity and also help me return to my momentum. With respect for myself, I can. I'm trying to think of the wording so that it sounds nice, but that doesn't matter. With respect for myself, I can move on to a different part of my goal and come back to this part with a slowed down mind. So fill this in so that you know how to work with failure, because if we're in a class, if we're doing a syllabus, there's going to be failure. And then basically you just want to reframe. How are you going to remind yourself that failure and that getting lost does not mean failing? For me, I always just try to remember that my life is a movie for myself, not for everybody else, but for the observer inside of my head, it's a movie. Not in a main character sense, but just in the fact that I'm observing my life. And I know that tomorrow I'm very much so not going to care that I messed up on this small thing, even though it feels really big right now. So that's my main reframe, but whatever reframe works for you, because the failure is going to be a huge part of this. Whenever you're learning something new, whenever you're trying to reach goals, there's going to be failure. So how can we make sure that failure doesn't mess up our momentum? So the very last thing, the syllabus is to help you reach your goals. It is not supposed to restrict you in any way. So this isn't like a whatever 70 hard or whatever it's called. It's just a mechanism, an organization system to help you meet your goals. So if you need to change it, change it. We want you to meet your goals. We want you to be your full, authentic, vibrant, amazing selves. Do not hinder yourselves to fit the system. So I hope that filling this out has helped you start to understand a little bit more about yourself and your goals. And I really, really look forward to talking with you and working with you in the next video, where we are going to be focusing on the spirit. It'll be really fun. Stay awesome. Stay being the hero in your life. Love you. Goodbye.